Welcome to Keep It Weird, the podcast for all things strange and unusual, creepy and cool, freaky and frightening, and everything in between. Every couple weeks we get together to talk about something weird. And this week is one of our all-time favorite episodes. It's time for some more real-life scary stories. These stories come from real people who had real experiences that they just can't explain. And we're here to share those stories with you, share our theories, and ask all of you out there listening, do you have an explanation? Have you had a similar experience? And what would you do if it were you? This week we've got a little bit of everything. Premonitions, UFOs, haunted houses, haunted woods, and even a haunted museum. As usual, this episode contains music and sound effects that could be jarring for some listeners. And for those listeners who absolutely hate the sound effects, how dare you? I work so hard on them. A sound effect-free version will be available for free on our Patreon, www.patreon.com/keepitweirdpodcast. For everyone else, grab an extra blanket because the temperature is bound to drop. And make sure there are batteries in your flashlight because you do not want to be left alone in the dark. And prepare yourself to be scared. My name is Ashley, and this is my co-host, Lauren.
Hi, weirdos.
Hi.
We are not as much of a mess as last time, but we're
not
not well
kidding.
either. Oh, no, we're a mess in
I thought you were going to be like, we're in a dark place. Yeah.
We are in a very dark place, but last time we were in the giggliest of places. So it's just a different
place. Listen, balance. Life is all about seasons, okay?
Oh,
last episode season was bright and sunny. This episode season, there's a hurricane on the horizon. No, we're
sure
okay.
Is.
Everything's fine.
However, that was so fun, and I do have to say, like, the listeners' feedback about that episode is exactly what I hoped for, because I know you and I were both kind of like, oh gosh, this could go south.
They're going to love it or they're going to hate it.
And everyone has been like, you have to do this at least once a year, if not more. Like, this was so good, and to you, I say, bet we are gonna do it once or twice a year.
Listen,
got it.
You want us to do it every episode? You want that to be our new thing? Keep it weird, keep it wacky, keep it wacky tobacco. No problem. Okay.
Yeah, that was a blast. It freed my soul in a way I didn't know.
Yeah, we'll have to do it more often. I do have a couple quick updates. One from last episode, actually, possibly the most important update I have. Sharks feel like sandpaper.
What?
Sandpaper. They are not slippery. You were closer than you thought with
when I was like, they're chalky.
Yeah, they are rough and sandpaper like. How could they get worse than what they already were?
I was gonna say I would still take like chalky over sandpaper. I'm like that rough. Yeah, sharks just continue to be sharkin'. Like they are horrific creatures. I don't like them.
Horrific creatures. Horrific
I don't like them
old dinosaurs. I love them actually. I really love sharks, but like, do I ever want to meet one? No. Do I want to hear all the scary things they do and that they feel like sandpaper? No.
No.
But
you're fascinated.
I will say one thing about sharks. Yeah, of course. One thing about sharks that you guys should all know about. I think it's on Max. They did it 2 years in a row. They might still do it. I don't know how recent they are, but there are 2 different Shark Week specials with the Jackass guys. And they do some of the craziest shark shit you have ever seen. It's actually very funny and entertaining. So I would highly recommend if you like sharks.
I will not be tuning in.
But yeah, Mel, a lot of people actually wrote in to be like, sharks are like sandpaper. But Mel was like, I was screaming at the radio. And I was like, oh, no, we let you down.
And what a terrible episode to be screaming at us because we couldn't get to any sort of rational conclusion about anything. No. So, you know.
Number 2, all of our responses so far for the divination readings have been overwhelmingly positive, some even scarily accurate. I wanted to share just a couple examples. Sasha, who had their reading about finding love, Obviously, stellar reading, but she was also shook up by the presence of unicorns and Norse goddesses, as she is one, obsessed with unicorns and has been her whole life. And two, Frigga, the Norse goddess, showing up for her was a huge affirmation for her belief system. So I think that's really cool.
I love that. Her email made me the happiest because it was like, wait, you didn't even know all these very subtle symbols that you like maybe would have skipped over were some of the most important things to me, which I love.
I know. And Elise, who wanted to know what her future husband was like, he's a potter and he does yoga. Elise, we told you exactly what he does.
We gave you the answer.
She did confirm that she usually goes for funny guys, so maybe Mr.
Mm.
Serious is her true soulmate. And she also told us that she had a reading done a few months ago, and they told her that he would be older and one to take care of her. So that's 3 readings from us and 1 reading from someone completely separate from us who gave her the exact same notes. Isn't that wild?
That is so wild. Yeah, I feel like at least you know what's coming for you now because everyone is telling you.
We can't all be wrong.
Instead, it's going to be like, actually, I ended up marrying a comedian, so I don't know what you all were
His name's
talking
Anthony
about.
Jeselnik.
Ah, adore him.
Number 3. The other last thing I wanted to share with you guys today. Lauren, you already know this. Not going to be a surprise for you. I texted you immediately after it happened. So
Wild.
Joe was having kind of a down week. Was this last week? I think it was last week.
I think so,
And
yeah.
he was out in the living room. I had already gone to bed, which is totally normal. He's a night owl. I'm asleep by 11. Anyway, he was up. He was bored. He was feeling kind of down. I had just given him a book of short stories by Ray Bradbury, and he wasn't quite ready to start reading it, but he was like, hey, Ashley's been talking a lot about this bibliomancy stuff, and you know he's not woo-woo at all. But he
Right.
was just like, I'm just gonna see. Like, it seems crazy, but I'm gonna try it. So apparently he sat with the book for a minute, kind of just thought about where he was in life, opened to a random page. He remembered the exact page so he could show me the next day. He turned to page 114, and the first line that he read in the middle of the page was, "How you doing, Joe?"
I'm still not over it. That's insane.
He said he just sat there and like closed the book and just stared off
And
in the
just
distance.
stared into
like,
the abyss.
what?
Where am I? What am I? Who
He said he
am
just
I?
stared for a while. But yeah, he was very excited
Yeah.
to tell me that. He was like, "You will not believe what happened."
That is so nuts, especially for it to say it'd be crazy regardless if it just had said Joe. Like Joe went to the store, like it could have if just saying his name, but to be like, "How you doing, Joe?" when he's sitting there all up in his feels, contemplating his entire life.
Trying it for the first time, being like a complete skeptic, non-believer, and it's like, "How you
Yeah,
doing,
he
Joe?"
thinks everything we do is bullshit, but he better be a believer now. Or he could be like Alex and just be like, it's all just chance and
Coinkydink.
probability. Shut
No.
up.
Shut up, Alex. Get out of here. I loved it so much that I made it my background on my phone. So
You
every
are
time I open my
so
phone,
cute.
I see it because it's like a little nod from the universe, and I think that's really
It
cool.
is. Like, I see you. I'm checking on you.
I'm here. I'm real. There's a lot of cool little nods from the universe happening lately over here. Hopefully, that means brighter days are ahead, or we're on the right path, or maybe it's nothing and everything is meaningless. So let's read some scary stories. Lauren, you go first.
Yeehaw! Okay.
Hee-haw.
My first story is a story out of Hawaii because I was recently in Kauai on a trip, and then I did a bonus episode on ghost stories and haunts and lore from Hawaii. So go check that out on the Patreon. Sign up to be a patron and go enjoy it. It was a lot of fun,
$5.
even though it was just me telling stories. It ended up being a lot of fun, but I was trying to keep it short and sweet. So I had one that I left out but that I thought was very interesting because Hawaii, like all the islands have a little something something going on, but this Maui specifically, I've learned, which I wasn't even in Maui on my trip, but I have just learned that that island has
Interesting.
some things going on.
It's ancient. It's the ancient world.
Ancient world. So this is from Reddit user aztecpontiac, which is a very fun name. And they say, when I was growing up in Maui in Kahana, about a third of the families that we met had ghost stories. My dad used to describe the curtain or the veil being very thin in Hawaii, but especially in this area of Kahana. There is a very strong presence of paranormal activity and hauntings, and we have definitely seen it in our family's experience. My family and I moved into a brand new home in Kahana. It was a beautiful home with a wraparound porch at the end of a cul-de-sac. Dreams. The first night we moved in, we were sitting around the kitchen counter eating dinner. We heard 3 knocks on the back door window. My dad said, "It was just a gecko." Excuse me? Just a gecko.
Trying to sell us insurance.
Gecko. But it happened again a few minutes later. Very unsettling. Now, our house was situated in the very back corner of the cul-de-sac, and there was a very small backyard surrounded by a big fence. On the other side of the fence was wild brush and bushes that went on for a couple hundred yards. As time went on, you would start to feel less and less comfortable being close to this section of the house. My bedroom was upstairs and located directly in this corner, of course, and I was the only person who slept up there and in this section corner of the house. Now, things started slowly, primarily with growing discomfort. You'd feel like something bad was in the room with you and that you had to get out. Little things started to happen, like I would go to the bathroom and come back to my room to find the TV or the radio turned onto a white noise station. Then the mirror on the bathroom was angled in a way that I could see into my bedroom window and brushing my teeth. I was brushing one night and noticed what appeared to be the silhouette of a person standing in front of the blinds in my bedroom. It moved to the side and then disappeared. Another night, brushing my teeth, I heard a loud snort behind me. The next morning, I woke up and went downstairs to get ready for school. My parents were staring at me, asking what had happened to my face. I went to the mirror and I found a long scratch across my face. I noticed scratches on my neck, took off my shirt, and found more scratches across my entire chest. That was the last night I ever slept in that room.
Bet.
Yeah, which I was like, yep, of course. For the next couple of years, I slept on the couch in the living room. And luckily, this couch was pretty close to my parents and my young siblings. I'd lay awake trying to fall asleep most nights for hours. Every morning at 1 a.m., I'd see and hear my 2 siblings slipping out of bed as quietly as they could. As soon as they'd hit the ground, they'd race to my parents' bedroom and sleep in their bed. My little sister and I both developed sleep paralysis in this house. When sleeping on the couch, I'd wake up with an aura of blue light floating above me, and I was unable to move. I still have sleep paralysis, but I haven't had a similar experience since we left this house. Not quite the same as the blue light floating above me. The house was on stilts because it was in a flood zone, and it was around 4 feet off the ground and surrounded with lattice. I'd take my dog out every night before bed, and every single night she would sit there and start growling at the lattice until I picked her up and brought her inside. One morning around 5 a.m., my dad was getting ready for work, and he heard someone calling his name from that horrible back corner of the house. He walked around the house and nobody was awake. He stated the voice sounded like my mom, but was a little bit electronic sounding and just off. The same exact thing happened to my mom several weeks later, but it was my dad's voice instead. Our house cleaner was alone cleaning our house one day. She went upstairs and made my bed. She came back upstairs and found footprints across the freshly made bed. She dropped the basket of laundry and ran out of the house, refusing to ever come back and clean again. After living there for a while and opening up with the neighbors, it turned out we were far from the only people in the neighborhood to have these types of experiences. Half of the families we talked to had very similar experiences to ours. The house was just a 2-minute walk from the beach and was supposedly the site of an ancient Hawaiian village. Later on, it was a pig farm and slaughterhouse as well, and it was built right over where our house now stood. This helped explain the snorting noises a bit in my head. Creepy. That is my
Ugh.
story, or should I say, stories. And I am still traumatized about this house and this neighborhood almost 2 decades later. Anytime I sleep in a new place, I can't sleep well for a night or two as I'm so worried about the place being haunted. I haven't had a single paranormal experience, though, since we moved.
Okay.
So Hawaii is beautiful and all, but like, no, thank you to
I will tell
this.
you that if I do ever visit Hawaii, I will be staying in an Airbnb because all of these houses seem so fucking haunted. Remember that Where in the World is Keep It Weird Going that you did with the Kauai
Yes,
house or whatever it was called?
correct.
Ko-
Yes.
it started with a K. It was like Asian.
Kapahoki. Yes.
Yeah.
It was an Asian name. Yeah, I touched on that in the bonus episode too, because I was like, remember that? It's
Remember?
like, it was
Same
terrifying.
place. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
there are some dark forces. That is what is interesting about a lot of the Hawaii stories is I feel like we so many times are like, if you have a paranormal experience, lean into it because you can't really get hurt. You might be able to like interact with
Yeah.
something, someone, whatever it may be, but like nobody's ever gonna like touch you. But then I read these stories out of Hawaii and it always seems like it's like
Unless
hurting
you're in
them.
Hawaii.
And unless you're there. And then it's dark
Get
and it's
out.
trying to kill you. And you get scratches across your chest.
I think of Hawaii and I think of Lays. I think of beach. I think of cocktails. I think of dancing with fire. And really, it's hell.
It's just hell. It's all a lie.
It's just hell on earth. What the fuck is going on there?
Very
Too many
disturbed.
volcanoes, maybe. Well, that was fucking insane.
Thank you, Aztec Pontiac.
Thank you,
They
Aztec
said they had
Pontiac.
so
Holy
many
shit.
more stories, and I was like, how? I was like, I won't even have time to get to them, but also how? Because you just told me everything terrible.
Seriously, if you took every like element of that few of those few paragraphs of that story and made a horror movie with those things happening, that would be a terrifying movie. It would be so
That's
effective. The
exactly what
blue
I was
aura,
thinking.
the pig snorting, the
No.
people in the
Mm-mm.
mirrors, footprints
Mm-mm.
on the bed. Like, are you kidding me?
I was thinking that the whole time. I'm like, this needs to just be put into a book or into a screenplay immediately because good Lord.
Well, I've got a couple stories here from a listener of the show. Her name is Emily. She's the best. She's an actor, singer, dancer, model. Are you kidding me?
Doing it all.
Someone put her in a musical. She can do it all. She's a Minnesota girl, and according to her, we've got to get our butts on a hometown haunts because they've got a lot of spooky ish going on up there. We did
Love
Hometown
that.
Haunts Canada, which is close,
It is to Minnesota.
but not
Also,
close enough.
speaking, it's so funny that you're saying this right now because at this moment, as we are recording, my babysitter, Madigan of Your Angry Neighborhood Feminist, is here babysitting my child, and she just told me that we should do a Minnesota hometown haunts because that's where she's from. So, also, that's creepy. The universe is wild, and we have to do a Minnesota episode.
Well, well, well. Maybe Madigan can be our guest. Madigan's been on the show before. She did our time travel episode. It was a lot of fun. Well, you weren't there.
No,
You had a baby. You either
I
were
did.
about to have a baby or you
Or
just
I
had a baby. I
just
don't
had him.
remember,
Yeah, I
but it
remember
was
that.
around
Yeah.
that time. Joe was our
Yes.
fill-in guest host, and it was very fun
Mhm.
for me because I didn't have anyone to play along. So I'd be like, "What if it's the Loch Ness monster?" And he'd be like, "It's not." Next
But it's
subject.
not. Let's change it over to something real.
Still mad about it. Anyway, Emily has got two quick stories here. First one I'm sharing because we've had a similar experience, and the second one I'm sharing because I've got some cool info to go along with it. So here we go. Emily. Emily says, "This was the only experience that I've had that happened in public, and it's something that always stuck with me. I was around 11 years old, and my class was on a field trip to the museum. Like most field trips, we had worksheets to fill out with questions pertaining to the exhibit. First of all, never did that in my life. We went to the Bowling Hall of Fame in 8th grade for a field trip, and it was
You did not go to
so
the
boring.
Bowling Hall of Fame.
The Bowling Hall of Fame, which
Oh my
was at the
God.
time, maybe still is, in St. Louis, Missouri, and sure didn't take notes. But anyways.
No. Well, you're not gonna for that kind of field trip. My goodness. That is so funny. I want to go.
None of the classmates the other class went to the zoo.
Okay. Well,
The
your
zoo.
class got the shaft. Wait, so why did one class get to go to the zoo and you went to the Bowling Hall of Fame? Like,
I don't know. But I ended up at the
I
bowl.
feel
You know what was
really
fun, though?
sad
At the
about that.
end, we got to bowl. So
All right.
I'm pretty sure they just
So,
wanted to take us
hey.
bowling. But we did not have to drive all the way to St. Louis, Missouri to go fucking bowling.
No, I think that's what blows my mind is that it was like you went to
We had a
St.
bowling
Louis,
alley
like
20 minutes
do
away.
something exciting in St. Louis.
Like most field trips, we had worksheets to fill out with questions pertaining to the exhibit. And the teacher had put us in groups and we had to work together. None of the classmates in my group were part of my friend group, but we got along well enough. We met up in the center of the gallery space and decided who was going to do what and which questions we were going to answer. Once that was done, the 2 to 3 girls walked away and I stayed where I was, probably writing down an answer that someone had already found. I looked to my right and at my feet I saw a cat. Just a normal house cat, but seeing as we were in a museum, that was not something I was expecting to see, and I jumped. I still remember the sound my shoes made on the floor, as there was quite a loud echo. I looked around expecting to see my classmates look at me or like roll their eyes. I wasn't a complete outcast, just someone that occasionally said weird things that classmates like to poke fun at. Same. But no one looked up. I looked down again and the cat was gone. I looked around expecting to see it walking away. Nothing. After a moment, I shook it off and I went on with the assignment. Since none of my friends were in my class, I never really brought up what I saw, and I also didn't want to get teased for seeing a cat in the museum that wasn't there. It never made sense why I saw a cat. I didn't have a cat. A couple of my friends did, but it didn't look like their pets, and as far as I can remember, no one had brought up cats that day. It was completely random, except for one thing. I feel like now is a good time to mention that the exhibit we were visiting was about ancient Egyptians. And the highlight of the exhibit was that we were going to see a real mummy. I did not learn about the way Egyptians revered cats until I was in college, and I didn't start becoming more interested in learning about ghosts until recently, so the entire thing didn't fully click until just a few months ago. Ghost Kitty!
Ghost Kitty. Those Egyptians worshipped cats. Cats were running everything. That is so wild.
I get it. And we have our own Ghost Kitty from the Queen Mary.
That is correct. We had a Ghost Kitty encounter, Emily.
I do feel super dizzy in this room, but I don't know if it's just because, not this particular room, but as soon as we walk down here, but I don't know if it's just because it's all the floors.
It was like you're walking into this room. Wait, that baby thing?
I thought it sounded like a cat.
It does sound like a cat. I definitely heard that. But I was like,
but there's no cats there.
wait, yes, do it again.
This room, but I don't know if it's just because, not this particular room, but as soon as we walk down here, but I don't know if it's just because it's all the floors.
It was like you're walking into this room. It does sound like a cat.
We didn't even hear our kitty in real time.
No,
but our
not
microphones
live,
picked
yeah.
her up. And it wasn't until after we even released our Queen Mary episode that we find out, because a listener wrote in, I think it was Chelsea, she goes by Bones Malone online.
Oh, yeah.
She sent in a screenshot of a travel review she read where the guests talked about hearing and seeing a ghost cat. And we got the ghost cat.
We caught a
on
little
audio.
meow meow. So we heard the cat. Emily saw the cat.
They're
I like
around.
it.
Ghost
I'm
cats
into
are real.
They're around.
I love what John Constantine says about cats as well. I don't know if you remember the movie Constantine at all.
Sure do.
Basically, he's trying to like go to hell to see if someone's in hell. And he has to like sit in this chair and put his feet in water and like face south or some shit. And he's like, I need something that belonged to the deceased. And she was like, what about her cat? And he's like, that's perfect. Cats are good, half in and half out anyway, which is how I always feel about them. Like, I've always had a
Yeah.
very strong connection and relationship with cats. I do feel like there's something otherworldly about them. They're
Yeah.
totally worthy of our worship, which is why I have
They
two
are.
spoiled, rotten monsters living in my
I
house.
know. Because we all want to worship them and treat them like the royalty that they are. There is something very, very special about cats. And it's very hard to explain, but something's there. I
Dogs
like
are great too, but like cats are better. This next story from Emily Still is totally different and a tad scarier.
it.
Emily writes, I've been meaning to share this strange story with you two for the longest time, and I would love your help in figuring out an explanation for it because I'm stumped. Years and years ago, when I was still living with my parents, I was sitting up in my room watching videos on my laptop in the dark. It was probably well after 10 o'clock, and my parents were both asleep. While I was sitting there, a bright light started to shine intermittently into my window, sort of going back and forth. Now, we lived on the corner of a main street, and every once in a while the cars would drive past and their headlights would shine into my bedroom window. But this was nothing like that. There were no sounds from outside, and like I said, the light was going back and forth in different directions. I thought maybe someone was walking around with a flashlight. I got up from my bed and I looked out the window and could sort of see this light coming from the sky, but being on the second floor, it was really hard to see what was going on, so I went down to the main level to look out the dining room windows. When I got down there, I was able to get a clearer view of the street, and I could see what looked like a spotlight darting around from the sky, pointing straight down onto the street. We lived on a cul-de-sac, and I could see it move from my neighbor's yard to the cul-de-sac and to another neighbor's yard, to our yard, etc. There was nobody outside that I could see. All the houses nearby were dark, and I cannot emphasize this enough that there was no sound. It was completely quiet outside. We lived near the airport, and I would get plane noises all the time, but whatever was above us was silent. I kept thinking to myself, is it possible for a helicopter to be flying directly above you and you wouldn't hear it? It didn't seem likely, but I couldn't think of anything else it could be at the time. Honestly, my brain never went to anything otherworldly. The first thing I thought was that there was some sort of manhunt and the police were looking for some escaped criminal in our neighborhood, which also freaked me out and made me go back upstairs. The next morning, I told my parents about it, and they pretty much dismissed it. They didn't say it was a dream or anything like that, but they definitely looked at what I said with skepticism. Fast forward about 5 years. I can't remember the exact dates for this, only that the first experience happened before I moved out of my parents' place, and the second was after I moved out. But about 5 years later, I was visiting with my parents at our house when my mom brought up the experience from that night. She said, do you remember when you told us about the spotlight shining from the sky, but whatever was making it was completely silent? And I said, yeah, why? And she said, I saw it the other night. I was lying in bed when I saw a light shining from the sky near my window and in the yard. So I went downstairs to get a better look, and I could see the light darting around the neighborhood. There was no noise, and after a few minutes, it went away. My mind was completely blown when she told me this, not just because of the fact that she was all of a sudden believing what I had told her all those years ago, but the fact that whatever it was came back. Were they looking for someone? Did I witness someone else's abduction? Or was it a really quiet blimp flying over our heads? We know it wasn't a motherfucking blimp.
Was not a blimp.
There are barely
Listen to
any
our
blimps.
last episode. There are no motherfucking
It
blimps.
was not
and
a blimp.
Everybody thinks that it
Promise.
is blimps. That was a wonderful moment in our last episode about the blimps. But wow, Emily, how do you just
Emily.
keep coming with the crazy stories? The cat in the museum is just a wild moment, but like this is, I don't even know what to make of this.
No.
So it was just silent light darting, nothing in sight.
Darting from the sky.
So it's aliens.
Nothing
as
made
we
sound,
know, it's
not a
aliens.
blink.
And I just need everybody to
clearly
like
freaking
get on board
aliens,
with us because
everyone.
it is definitely aliens. But like it could have been anything. It could have been a blimp.
Could have
and,
been
like, It could
anything.
have
It really
been
could
a
have been a
helicopter.
blimp.
But it was like
It was
definitely
probably Saturn.
it was probably Saturn because it's like always Saturn.
Have you thought about it being Venus? Yeah, so I actually have been thinking a lot about this phenomenon lately. There's a woman, her name is Diana Walsh Pasulka. She goes by DW Pasulka when writing because why wouldn't you hide the fact that you're a woman
Why
in this economy?
in
Anyway,
this economy?
Diana is a professor of religious studies. I actually own 2 of her books, Encounters,
Oh,
and I forgot to grab it, but one's called Encounters, one is called American Cosmic, which explores the belief in UFOs and extraterrestrials and how that belief has changed traditional religions. It's fascinating. She's
I bet.
also awesome because she interviews scientists, researchers, doctors, Silicon Valley entrepreneurs, those who a majority of society would deem believable. Because I think even though so many people have had experiences, the belief in UFOs is very fringe. And I think some people still believe that if you've seen a UFO, you live in a trailer and you chew tobacco. You know what I
1000%.
mean?
Yep.
Like, those are the only people. So, anyway.
Yeah.
I saved a quote on my phone recently from American Cosmic, and I wanted to share it. And the quote is Witnesses and researchers often report the strange feeling that once you become aware that there is a phenomenon, it becomes aware of you. They report that the first sighting is just that, a first, and then others follow. The uncanny feeling that the objects are aware or watching those who are watching them is common. They're watching you, girl. Or they're at least watching your
They are
neighborhood for some
watching
reason.
you.
Maybe someone
Yeah.
important was born there. Maybe the physical location is the importance. Maybe it's like a window area or a flap,
Right.
as John Keel called them, where activity is enhanced or able to be witnessed. But keep an eye on your hood because
Seriously,
something is.
something is going on there. I love that Emily was able to have the validation from mom too. I feel
Yeah.
like that just makes it that much, I mean, crazier, but also it's just nice to have somebody else of like, okay, so you also saw this. Like, I don't sound completely crazy right now. Like we all witnessed this. Okay.
Yeah, when I found out my
That's-
grandparents had also seen the Thunderbird, it was like
Oh my God. Yeah.
the biggest relief ever because I legitimately thought that I had like some sort of mental break. I was like, well, clearly I
God.
lost my mind because dinosaurs
slipped
aren't
out for a
real.
moment. Yeah.
And so years
Right.
later when my grandma was like, actually we saw that too. It was crazy. It was like,
Like,
okay, well, whatever it was
so I'm a
really
person.
there. Thank
I
you.
don't know like what it was, but like thank you. Wow. Yeah, we love that. We love the validation. We need it.
Thank you, Emily.
Yes.
I'm sorry it took
Thank
me
you,
so long
Emily.
to read your story that you sent in last year.
It's fine. It's totally fine. We love you.
We love you.
All right, this next story comes in from a longtime listener named Noah,
Yeah.
who comes to us from Norway. I was like, Noah has written in
So
a few
cool.
times, and this is cool for 2 reasons, because Noah lives in Norway, and we always are excited when it's like people in other countries listen to us, but also Noah is a teen. And I also think it's really cool when teenagers give us the time of day.
Yeah, that means
Because
we're cool.
like, what are we doing right?
It's all our cool teen
So,
lingo,
like,
like
thanks.
bet and holy buckets.
I know.
The teens always
Even
say
though
that.
like holy buckets is the most used phrase with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. No, it's funny because I just started using bet because TikTok has destroyed my brain, but bet is actually on its way out.
Ugh.
So I'm still a millennial
Okay.
because bet was like 2 years ago.
Well.
So I'm just trying my best, you know.
We're just trying to stay relevant. Hi, Noah. Thank you so much for writing in.
Hi, Noah. Noah writes, and you know I like to read the whole
know,
email
you
when
love
it's very sweet. Hi, I'm Noah, and I just wanted to start off by saying that Keep It Weird is my absolute favorite podcast ever and has been my top listened podcast on Spotify for the past couple of years. I really love you two and all of your guests so much.
Thank you so
Noah.
much.
Now to the actual story. To set the scene, this story takes place in the very most northeast area in Norway. At my school, a school who has less than 70 students and is a
Oh,
first
wow.
through 10th grade school and was built between World War I and World War II, and has always had rumors of children who died during the war that haunted the basements.
Sure.
So this is where I went to school.
Yeah,
Very
why
excited.
not?
Super casual, just haunted basement, kids everywhere, and when I say kids everywhere, ghost kids. So Noah says, this last September, me and my friends, who we can call Alice and John for the story, were given the task of cleaning out one of the 3 basements we have at our school. And of course, we get the one which is most rumored to be haunted. Story after story, dark, eerie feelings. This is the one we are cleaning. We are handed the key to the basement and we head downstairs.
I love how the teachers are like, you do it.
You have
I'm
to
not
do it.
going
We're
down
not doing
there.
that shit. We're not going down there. I went
Absolutely
down there
not.
last year. I almost quit my job.
I have white hair now. Go on.
We're handed the key to the basement and we head downstairs. Deep breaths. Now, in every room at our school, we have motion triggered lights. So whenever someone walks into any room, the lights should turn on. They always do. But we walk into this basement and the lights would not turn on when we walked in. Alice then, as the non-believer she is, would excuse it to, oh, the sensors are just horrible. We're in the basement, whatever. And it is logical since they wouldn't always turn on immediately. But when we had reached the middle of the room and were shaking our arms frantically over our heads in every direction trying to get the sensor to pick us up, the lights still would not turn on, which then felt a little strange. Imagine this. The basement is sort of a T shape, so you walk in at the bottom of the T and you can't see 2 parts of the basement that are going off to the top. So, when you're waving your arms frantically, stuck in the dark, not knowing what's going on, and you suddenly see a small light turn on in the very right corner of the T, you're gonna get pretty scared. And that is what happened to us. I'm already terrified of the dark, so I am already panicking because the lights would not turn on. That was enough. And then this tiny beam of light shows up, and I could barely breathe. Alice was holding me and trying to calm me down as John, who will never admit that he's scared, slowly heads toward the light and was using his phone as a flashlight so he wouldn't stumble into anything. I don't remember much after this as I was in a total state of panic and anxiety. But after we had walked back upstairs and I had taken a moment to calm down, John told me that he had seen a lamp, which apparently was very old and should not have been able to light up. It lit up like it was brand new. And there was a small doll, which no one, as I know, even with all of the stories and rumors, had ever seen before, just sitting beside it. I don't really know if this qualifies as a ghost story. There weren't any of the obvious telltale signs, except that this lamp, this old-ass lamp, had turned on by its own. But it feels really weird in that basement, even when the lights are on. The energy is off, and something is going on down
Lord.
there. Noah, you do not even have to say, I don't know if this qualifies. Like, what if I were in a basement and an old ass lamp in the far corner of the room just turned on and a doll was the mascot of the lamp, the representative of the lamp? I don't know.
The representative of the basement? What was she doing?
What was going on? And yes, like motion sensors can be off, but like if every motion sensor was working in the school and then like it just happened to be this day, like where frantically waving your arms, it doesn't turn on, like you are so allowed to be freaked out.
You were so allowed to be like, sick day.
Sick
I actually
day,
have to go
bye.
home.
And
I actually can't
teachers,
be here.
you actually have to clean the basement.
Yeah, also
Like, get
teachers,
on it.
you get down here with the demons, the dolls
do
and the
wonder.
demons and the basement rep.
This is the basement rep. I do wonder, Noah, if you had any follow-up after this horrifying experience of talking to anybody else, students or staff, and just saying, like, we had this crazy experience. And I wonder if any of the teachers have said anything like, oh yeah, that's Denise, the doll. Like, we see her. Yeah. Like, let us know if that's a
Yeah, I want to know if
regular
this
thing
doll
that I hate.
has any more lore attached to her aside from being the keeper of the light in the basement tea.
Keeper of the
The
lamp.
keeper of the lamp. Light.
Thank you, Noah,
Boy,
for
oh boy,
listening to
Noah,
us
thank you so
and
much
writing in
for
this horrible story.
being a fan and scaring the pants off of us.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny is my note says, speaking of kittens, because I had told a cat story several stories ago. But okay, my next story comes
Did you
to
think
us.
you were just going to go back to back to back?
Back to back to back. No room for Lauren.
Speaking of cats starting as kittens.
My turn again. Speaking of kittens. My next story comes to us from Reddit user Small of Two Pieces, and it comes along with a huge shout out of support for Kittens and Barbells, which is a cat rescue that services the New York City and Westchester area. I actually looked it up because I was like, Kittens and Barbells is interesting.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
Well,
Is
apparently,
it a gym?
the president and vice president, Catherine and Donovan, met at the gym, hence the Barbells, and they've been dating for years. They rescued a cat together in 2017 that they had to rehabilitate, and that was all she wrote. They started Kittens and Barbells. They've now fostered and rescued over 300 cats and kittens, and they also trap, neuter, and return all over the tri-state area. And you can make a donation at kittensandbarbells.org, or they also have an Amazon wish list on there if you want to provide them with something specific, because they're always looking for scratchers, puppy pads, syringes, litter, milk replacement for the itty bitties. Please check them out. Donate if you can. And always foster or adopt. Don't shop if you are looking for a new pet.
That's fucking right.
Kittens and Barbells. Okay.
Love that. Kittens and Barbells.
I know, it was so cute. Small of Two Pieces and I had a bit of a chat in our DMs with some more info, but their initial post is what I'm going to read for you now. Small of Two Pieces says, not sure how paranormal you'd consider this, but about a year ago, we moved to a new house in a rural area. Woods, open fields, and cows for the most part. Not long after we moved in, I was out in the yard with my German Shepherd, who has since passed. R.I.P. Teddy. R.I.P. Teddy.
Oh. R.I.P. Teddy.
Getting him to do his business before we went to bed. It would have been about 8 or 9 p.m., and it was winter, so it was very dark out, maybe mid to low 40s temperature-wise. It was a clear night as far as rain or snow goes. There was no ice. I was standing in the yard just enjoying the peace and quiet when I heard wind chimes coming from the side of my house. I felt the hairs on the back of my neck stand up, and I called my dog and hurried back inside. The creepiest part of it, we don't own wind chimes.
No, thank you. Nope. Wind chimes. You
know the rest. Never heard it again. Don't know what it could have been. I sometimes see lights driving down the vacant wooded roads that look like headlights crossing the street from a crossroad, but when I approach the spot, there is no crossroad. It's only woods. Or headlights coming towards me that disappear as they dip down a hill, but when I crest it and approach, they're just gone, with no turnoffs in sight. As we DM'd, they also added to the light phenomenon. Small of Two Pieces also said, one time I saw what I can only describe as a fairy. I was driving to work. It was super early. Couldn't have been later than 6 a.m. It was dark out. The sun wasn't up yet. I rounded a corner that was next to a field with a line of trees maybe 50 yards off. And I see in the tree line something floating, or maybe more like fluttering. It was giving off its own light, and it looked like an enormous moth, which immediately made me think of the 1998 movie Phantoms with Liev Schreiber and Ben Affleck, and it scared the pants off of me.
Ooh. Yeah. Oh my God, yeah.
An enormous moth giving off its own light, apparently.
I don't like to imagine that.
They said it had to have been pretty big for me to see it from so far away, and it wasn't like my headlights were illuminating it because I was turning the opposite direction around the bend, so it was glowing on its own. I passed it and unfortunately never saw it again, and I still to this day don't know what it was. That's
What
a cryptid, bitch.
What was it?
Cryptid.
That is a cryptid. Like
Mothman.
we're gonna have to come up with a name
Jersey
for
Devil.
it. It's either Mothman or it's little fairy winged,
fella.
I don't know. The old fairy
The
fella.
old fairy fella. Bit of an update too. When I mentioned, because they had posted a couple stories, I guess, and they were like, which one were you wanting to tell? And I was like, the one about the wind chimes. And they were like, ugh, the freaking wind chimes, is what they said. I'll never forget them. You want to hear something funny? A couple weeks ago, we were gifted wind chimes, and my wife hung them in, you guessed it, the spot that I heard them coming from.
What? So do you think they were interacting with future timelines?
Possibly. I shared with them the ideas and theories that we've shared on the show about how like hauntings and ghosts don't necessarily have to be from the past. They could just as
No.
easily be from the future. So is it possible that Small of Two Pieces heard their own wind chimes that they didn't even own yet?
Right. It's like, oopsie doodle, we interacted with a future self hanging those wind chimes. Wow.
Wowzers. Wowzers Bowsers.
Wowzers Bowsers. That is good stuff.
This really solidifies for me. We have to go camping or squatching. Like, we have to.
I just hate the outdoors.
Just think about the experiences we could have.
I know. Trust me, I know. That's why we bring it up like 2 to 3 times a season. We're like, we have to do this because, of course, like the experiences, the things that we would see, the things we would hear,
the way we would get murdered and be famous for being.
I know.
For talking about our own murder beforehand.
To have our documentary made about us. The Keep It Weird gals were found in the cold, dewy forest.
That started as a Lifestyles of the Rich and the Famous and ended as a true crime special.
I think that narrator could be doing our true crime special, which would be very fitting because of our segment. But I'll go. But I will never be happy about it because I hate sleeping on the ground and I hate the outdoors.
Oh, bitch,
and
no.
I want
Listen,
to be inside.
When I
walls.
say camping, do not mistake what I am saying.
It's glamping.
We will be glamping. I'm not sleeping on the ground. I'm 36 years old. It hurts when I wake up in my bed.
I know. I was like, my back hurt when I woke up in my cozy bed this morning. But wait, I'm now remembering, this triggered a memory. So we have talked about this before. We will not sleep on the ground. We wanted to come up with a term for squatching and glamping combined, and we could not think of it. Squamping.
Squamping.
Well, it works.
We're going to go squamping. Anyone who wants to take us squamping, who knows what mushrooms we shouldn't eat,
to do it.
Or like how to hike or how to start a fire,
how to
please.
In the outdoors.
You're invited.
How to walk on a trail. That's how to
walk on a trail.
I need
how
it.
to not get lost. We are taking submissions for our squamping trip.
Squamping.
Thank you, Small of Two Pieces. Crazy.
Thank you, Small of Two Pieces. My goodness. Wind chimes. You know the rest. I also had forgotten about that.
Have we told that story on the show?
Inside joke. I don't think so. That's why I was like, sorry, inside joke. But what was the story?
Oh, I remember the story.
Oh, tell it.
You and I were at a sleepover. We were about 22. Well, I was 22, so you're probably 21. We were at a sleepover, and we were in Hollywood, and the girl who lived there, we were out. It wasn't like a patio. It was like the roof. It was literally
in
like
between, a square that was outside.
You climbed out the window.
Yeah.
To
and
stand
then you could
on
sit
a
the
roof.
Square. Yeah.
And of course, at the time, 21, 22, we're all out there smoking because we thought we were cool. And, but we were giggling, we were being too loud. And the girl who lived in the place was like, guys, you have to keep it down. Like my neighbors and like we've gotten complaints, and we're slap happy and we're a little drunk and we're having fun. So we're trying so hard, but we're giggling a lot. We're trying to be quiet. And she comes out again. She's like, I'm not kidding. You have to be quiet. And we're like, all right, guys, we should go inside. And we all stand up to go inside. I don't remember who actually ran into the wind chimes, but someone walked directly into the loudest wind chimes you've ever heard, which of course we erupted into laughter. And when we finally came in, we're dying. We can't breathe. And of course, the girl that lived there was like mad. And she was like, what the fuck? And you literally, the only words you could get out, you were like, wind chime. You know the rest.
Tale as old as time.
Tale as old as time.
The old wind chime. Oh.
So for years,
it was honestly probably
now,
me who
like
ran into them
20
too.
years. Yeah, we say wind chimes. You know the rest.
You know the rest. Oh my gosh. To have that quote book would be my biggest dream come true. Do you?
I should still do it. I mean, I kind of do. I just write them in my notes app and my phone, which is not as special. But anytime someone says something that makes me laugh really hard or a quote that I like, I used to write it in a little like diary, basically. That was just quotes.
And we would read them at our sleepovers, and it was so good.
I wish I had been a little bit more descriptive, though, because sometimes there's a quote and like, at the time I must have been like, I'll never forget this. And then I read it and I'm like, this makes zero sense. No idea.
What were the details of this?
No idea.
Oh, good times.
Good times.
My gosh, it's crazy. Like, I know that we've known each other that long, but it was weird to hear you say, like, when you were 21 and I was 22, because I'm like, now we're 35 and 36. And I'm like, wow. Known each other so long.
I know.
Love that.
Where's the time gone? Love that for us.
So, this next story is from a listener who wanted to remain anonymous, which
That's fair
enough. And they say, love you guys so much. Love listening to the show, yada, yada. But they say, I'm so sorry. This story is actually a bit dark, but I wanted to talk about it because I think certain places may have the power to change someone's energy, and I need to discuss. Let me explain.
Totally.
I was like, already we're on your page.
We're in.
They say, my aunt, let's call her for the story, Auntie P, lived in a super old, somewhat falling apart, but very affordable house near the edge of the woods. It was also not far down the road from a cemetery, and it was sort of just a strange, deserted area, and it had a very strange feel. It wasn't suburban, it wasn't a busy neighborhood, just a little odd. Long story short, in my view, Auntie P went a little crazy from this house.
Oh, Lord.
My mom and I stayed with her when I was in high school, and while she welcomed us at first, she became increasingly irrational and paranoid. At first, it was just restrictions on when we could use the washer and dryer, but then it was the shower. Then it was the kitchen, in the sense that by the time I got home from school, the kitchen was, quote-unquote, closed. She started boarding up the windows so that people couldn't look in and steal her stuff. The house was dark and oppressive, and now, as an adult, I can see that she was probably resentful of our presence and poor at expressing those emotions, but on the other hand, it wasn't just us. She also subjected her life partner and my cousin, who lived out back, to the same restrictions. All stemming from a fear that these people out in the world that she kept referring to, were going to come in, break into the house, and take all of her things. She eventually kicked my mom and I out because she just couldn't take it anymore. Fast forward, Auntie P died of renal cancer. She refused to go to the doctor, and it literally ate her from the inside out. Her partner moved out and has since blossomed as a person that I still love as my auntie and am still in touch with. The house, after a pretty toxic battle within the family, went to another auntie, and we will call her Auntie L. I grew up in poverty, but Auntie L was a wonderful, loving person who did what she could and watched all of us kids back when I was a total brat. Within the first year she got the house, I was already in college, but she was starting to board up the windows.
Oh my God.
I asked her about it. Even though I'm away, I'm trying to check in as much as I can, and she says, I just really am trying to prevent people from stealing my stuff. When my mom went back to visit just this past year, she was literally on death's door from congestive heart failure. It seemed to have come out of nowhere. Mom spent her entire vacation at the hospital and at the house taking care of Auntie Elle because of this sudden onset horrific illness. And all I can say is I wouldn't stay in that house even if my name was on the list to take it for free. Auntie Elle is still somewhat pushing through, but we don't know what's going to happen.
Wowzers.
So that's crazy
Wow.
because I'm like, first of all, like we've talked about this before, where a certain place can shift energy and have remaining dark energy from something that could then latch onto a person. But I feel like the physical health part, which I guess can be a result of, you know, the paranoia, the stress, the not sleeping, all of that. But it is just kind of wild that it's like it took like a year, 2 years for the second aunt who lived there to be so sick. That's just wild.
Yeah. Well, and also it could be something like black mold.
Right. Because it is an old, decrepit house. But
If it's an old house and there's a black mold infestation in the walls, it could literally be making them sick. And like that can also make you go,
hallucinations.
yeah, hallucinations. But the first thing I thought of was maybe possibly at some point someone lived there that did have a home invasion. And
Yeah. And was leaving
that
dark
energy is just like lingering because that's such a weird
because it's so
paranoia
specific
to
of like
it's so
stealing.
specific.
Yeah. Well, and getting to like the black mold thing, I know not everyone would hallucinate as a result, and maybe it would depend on how long you lived there, but both aunties were taking people in and having them, like having people stay for long
That's
amounts of
true.
time,
Who
including
weren't getting sick.
Anonymous. Yeah, and they weren't hallucinating, but they weren't even getting sick because, yeah, this person who wrote in was like, I wasn't getting ill, nothing was
Yeah,
happening
I'm
to me,
fine.
so it all just seemed so out of the blue. And then, yeah, to like be off in college thinking like, okay, that was really sad what happened to my aunt, but like we're moving on. And then to hear that the other aunt is like, people are trying to steal my stuff. Like I don't know what I would do. That's just wild.
Yeah, I would that's terrifying. Anonymous, thank you for sharing that story with us. I hope your aunt pulls through,
Yes.
and also tear down that fucking house.
I know.
Tear it down. We're done. We
Sadly,
tried.
aunt is dying in hospice care, but because this story, like this was a very recent update, like talking about how his mom was
Oh,
like supposed to
wow.
be on break, but she was like caretaking for the aunt, but she's holding on longer than what was expected. So I will follow up because I'm very like, I'm also curious about
Curious
that.
to see if
But
getting out of the house could help.
I know that's what I'm thinking. It's like, I don't want to sit here and think
Okay.
a miracle, but who knows?
Okay, well, I have a quick spread of premonitions from a very blessed or cursed family, however you want to look at it. Personally, I see it as being
Goodness.
blessed, but whatever gets your motor running. These stories come to us from Nicole Scott Clytus. And Nicole, sweet angel, wants to make sure that she gives St. Jude's Children's Hospital some love. So, for anyone who doesn't know, which you should, St. Jude's is huge, but St. Jude's is consistently ranked one of the best places to donate to. They provide care, treatment, and research for children with cancer, which is basically the most heartbreaking thing on the planet.
Yes.
They
Should not
share
be allowed.
all of their research with the world, and the families that they care for will never receive a bill. So the money you donate could go towards anything from like their meals in the cafeteria, which is also free of charge. They do not charge these families a penny. It could even go to a child's bone marrow transplant. So donate today at stjude.org, or you can visit amazon.com/stjude to shop, and the proceeds will go to the organization. They also, I found this out today, they also donate unused or partially used gift cards to St. Jude. So if you have any like gift cards lying around,
I do. I have so many.
stjude.cardcash.com, and you can just enter the card information and transfer the funds to them. So
I have
that's
so
fucking
many
awesome.
from Teacher Appreciation Week. I got so many Starbucks and Target gift cards, and it was to the point where I was like, please stop giving me gift cards because like I don't go to Starbucks that
Yeah.
often, and
I'll
like
take an
first it's
apple.
like yeah, right, and like also
If
yeah,
you don't
like
give
give
this
me the
teacher a Jimmy
classic
John's
teacher
gift
apple.
card for the love of God.
That's what you really should be giving me. No, but I like I loaded up my Starbucks app with like a couple of the gift cards, but then I was like, man, I want to like regift
Maybe
these
don't
or
go to
do something
Starbucks.
else with them. So this is a great opportunity, and I love that they do that. That's a cool way to give.
stjude.cardcash.com. Yeah. So without further ado, Nicole says, my mother dreamt about September 11th, a few days, maybe a week, give or take, before it happened.
Oh, okay.
She had a dream, and in her dream, she was watching two really tall buildings burn. She said that she could see and hear people screaming for help. She said it felt so real that she could feel the heat from the fire. She said that she saw both buildings collapse, and she saw all these people buried under the debris. She told us this because she wanted my sisters to not go into the office. My two sisters, both attorneys, worked at the Daily Center back then in downtown Chicago, and my mother assumed it was a premonition about my sisters. So they took the day off. Like, they believed her. They took the day off. But nothing happened that day, so they went back to work the next day, and we all sort of forgot about my mom's dream. And a few days after that, 9/11 happened.
Dang.
Boy, but that's
Oh
not
my
the
God.
only family member. My grandmother had premonitions too. She dreamed that her oldest son, my uncle, would be shot. And she told him to go straight to school that day, do not stop for anything, and come straight home. Well, he didn't listen. He stopped at a friend's house who had just gotten into his dad's gun cabinet. His friend started playing with a shotgun he assumed was empty. It went off, and it blew my uncle's left leg almost completely off.
Oh.
He had to get 9 pins in his leg and knee to reattach it, and to this day he still can't bend his leg. He walks like he's got a pirate's peg leg. As far as I know, nobody else in my family has this ability, or if they do, they've never shared any stories.
Okay. Well, so the family has some weird things going on in the premonition world. That the 9/11
Blessings.
the 9/11 thing is so crazy.
It's
I feel
not the
like
only time I've heard someone say that they had dreams about the towers falling before it happened. I had a
oh
weird dream the week before 9/11 too that I remember to this day, and
my
I wrote
gosh, and
it
you were
down because it was
young.
so fucked up. Yeah, and I was young, and like, here's the thing, it had nothing. It was very apocalyptic. There was a lot of like ash in the air, but I was in southern Illinois
Yeah.
and had no connection to 9/11 whatsoever.
Oh. Wow.
So, don't know what that's about, but I think a collective consciousness thing was happening because I think that a
I
lot of
agree.
people had weird feelings before that
I was gonna
huge
say, and I
disaster.
think we may have talked about that a little bit when we were talking about, but like in our prophetic dreams episode. But you definitely, I feel like on more than one occasion have had premonition
Yes.
like dreams, and they've been
Mhm.
connected to some of them have been like absurd, like the spider in the car, where you're kind of like,
Spider in the car
why did
is
I dream about
insane,
that?
and
And
I
why
hate
did
it.
it happen? And like, what was the point? But then I feel like you've had dreams that have maybe been related to people that like you've never met, could be living somewhere else. You're seeing a location that you know nothing about. And that is so bizarre. But I think that is like a collective consciousness thing. I mean, that's all we can explain it as, because it's like, why are you seeing this? Why are other people seeing 9/11? Why?
Yeah, it either is a premonition, like you literally saw the future. There's a collective consciousness. It could be what's it called when you lucid dreaming? It could be like,
Hmm.
or not lucid dreaming, but like astral projection. Like, I don't know what's going on when those things happen, but like something triggers. I mean, we don't even know what dreams are, so we can't
Right.
even like make assumptions about
Fully
that because
speak
we
to
don't
what
even
that is. Yeah.
literally know what they are.
Correct.
My word, Nicole, thank you for letting us tell that story. I hope you keep up with us. If any of your family members or you, dun dun dun, have a dream premonition in the future,
let us know.
we need to hear about it.
Please.
Actually, just send us your dreams as you have them, and if one of
even
them
if it's
true,
like
we'll be
a
prepared for
squirrel
anything
that you were chatting with at a picnic table while having lunch, we want to hear
I was
about
a squirrel.
it. Send us all of
He
your
was a
dreams.
squirrel. Here's the thing. I do have one more story, but my computer is, for some reason, even though it's plugged in and charging, is dying. I'm at 8%. I feel like it's going to die before I could even get through this story. So what I'm going to do, this is Reddit user Army Jackson. I'm telling your story next episode. Even though it's not a listener ghost stories episode, we're going to have a ghost story involved. It'll be in there. Listen.
You can have a
it's
paranormal paradise.
It's a good one. Okay. We'll do a paranormal paradise. It's fucking crazy. Of course, I left
one of the
craziest stories for
I know.
last. I know.
Because I was like, I technically had one more, but I left it off because I was like, I feel like we've been going a good length of time, but mine was just adorable, and I may still bring it up. This is a book called Haunted Door County. My parents are the cutest, as we know. I say it often. Jeff and Jane, listen to them also. Another plug for the Patreon. Their episode is so much fun on the Patreon. But they went to Door County, Wisconsin, which is just like this old but beautiful peninsula on the waters of Lake Michigan. And there are a ton of haunts, mostly involving sailors, people who worked in lighthouses, because it was like such a place of like travel and welcoming people in. So there are really cool stories, and I was just going to share one from the book, but it can be saved for another time because it was a little
maybe
longer,
we'll have a handful of ghost stories next time. Who knows?
Who
knows what we'll get up to?
But so cute. They sent me this book after their trip. I was like,
guys,
you knew I'd like
you guys, you know me. You really know me.
Door County. Anyway. Sorry.
Damn it, I was gonna
What? Who?
I was gonna spin the wheel, but
is the wheel not working either? What's
going
on?
It logged me out again.
So the computer's dying. The wheel won't spin. We are in hell. We're in Hawaii.
We're in Hawaii right now. Hold on, I want to see. My wheels. Come on, baby. It's not there. All right. Well, listen. What are you going to do? 7%. We're dying. Okay. We love you guys so much. We hope you had fun listening to these scary stories. And if you ever have a scary story, please email it to us. It doesn't even have to be on the show. Like if you're like, I have a scary story that I want to hear your thoughts on, but I don't really want it on an episode. Just say that. We read the whole email. We won't share it with the world. It'll be our little secret. Email keepitweirdpodcast@gmail.com. I'm sending your scary stories. And thank you to all of the people, listeners and Redditors who allowed us to share your tales today. We hope that we did them justice.
Yeah. We love that.
Yeah.
I was a little distracted because I was gonna try and find an inspirational quote to leave everyone with, but I wanted it to be like the dumbest, but I couldn't find anything good.
All right, listen, we're not good on our toes. You know, it's not that I'm on my toes, it's that I'm on my toes and I have a time limit. So
this was
ticking down.
The computer is dying. We don't have anything. So run.
We love you. And
like
run,
the
don't
horses
walk.
And I don't know.
Good night, love you. In the wind. Good night, love you. Keep it weird.
Keep it weird.